What a headshot! What a head!
How's it, guys? This is Dayvy, FPL, and welcome back to the Fantasy Premier League video here on my channel. Now in this video, I'll be taking you through my transfer plan for the upcoming Game Week 9. So I know Game Week 8 hasn't ended, but I don't have any players featuring tonight in that Palace vs Nottingham Forest game, and therefore we can jump straight into the transfer plan for the upcoming Game Week. Now as always, a quick recap of the previous Game Week or the current Game Week 8. Then I'll be jumping into all the goodness for upcoming Game Week 9, where we'll probably be using both our free transfers. So that's something you guys are interested in. Sit back, relax, and let's get straight into it. So as mentioned, Game Week 8 was actually a pretty game week for ourselves. At the moment, we have secured a green arrow, even though we don't have any players featuring tonight. So I'm pretty sure after tonight, the green arrow will still remain a green arrow, as we have quite a few points more than the average. So as you guys can see, a total of 42 points scored in Game Week 8, and I think the average was about 30 or so points. So let me know how your game week went. Was it a good week, a bad week, or a terrible week? I've seen some pretty low scores over on FPL Twitter. Now we also have 2 free transfers and 0.0 in the bank, but we'll talk about that a little bit later on. Let's go over the bench and the starting 11. So the bench this week was actually required, as you guys know, but SAKA was not even in the squad, and therefore Van de Ven comes off for 1 point. Pretty disappointing there, but I've come to expect the same with Spurs this Premier League season. The stats look pretty strong, but their clean sheets aren't going to be there. So no attacking returns either, but at least Greaves didn't get a clean sheet, as he was actually injured as well, and then Shawomi didn't feature. So no bench jam this week, only the 1 point appearance, but I guess that's 1 point added. Now going to our starting 11, Flekken with a 4.5 performance that was pretty actually good. He got 9 saves in total for 4 points. Now the only downer was the fact that he conceded 2 to Manchester United. Just imagine if he kept the clean sheets, that would bring bonus points as well as clean sheet points. But it wasn't meant to be, but at least he did outperform Raya. He was kind of the choice on my wildcard. And the one thing that's certain about the Brentford goalkeeper is that he has to make a lot of saves. Just adds to that kind of debate about which goalkeeper to go for. Do you go for kind of a very good defense, but your 4.5 doesn't make a lot of saves, or the polar opposite with Flekken at the moment? But let's see how this does play out, as Brentford has some good fixtures coming up. Overall, not too unhappy with this 4.5. Now, backline is a completely different story. As you guys can see, Gabriel with only 1 point. Arsenal can't keep a clean sheet at the moment. Now, I know what you might be saying, it's the fact that they're getting so many red cards. How can you keep a clean sheet with only 10 men? It might be harder than it looks, as we've seen with this Arsenal defense. Now, I was just happy that Gabriel wasn't the one that got red carded. It was his colleague and partner Saliba, but ultimately came back to bite us with Gabriel conceding 2 goals. So no attacking threat this game, and unfortunately no defensive threat. I just don't know how Arsenal haven't kept a clean sheet in these easier 3 fixtures. Now the same could exactly be said about Man City at the moment, but at least Guardiola came in clutch with a lovely strike, and then some bonus points take him to double-digit return. So I just want to give a shout out to Guardiola before we talk about our other Man City defender, and that's Rico Lewis. So yes, Man City did concede actually pretty early on into that Wolves fixture. They just can't keep a clean sheet like Arsenal at the moment. So it might not have been the most wise decision to kind of double up on this defense, but the fixtures look so good. Now I was just kind of happy that both these options did feature in their game. Don't really know if it's worth the stress of waiting for that lineup team sheet. So we might actually be making a change in our defensive department that'll help facilitate a midfielder move, and that might be for SAKA. So as you guys can see, SAKA unfortunately injured in this game, wasn't even on the bench and therefore resulted in 0 points. And he actually proved quite controversial this FPL game week. As you guys would have seen, some people took him out for Heung-min Son, but I unfortunately didn't get any early team sheet news, and therefore SAKA remained in my team. So it would have been interesting to see if SAKA was going to be out injured, or at least we got news before the deadline, because I would have had to take a -4 hit as Son was my preference. But at the end of the day, didn't feature. Arsenal scored 0 goals, but I would have liked to see SAKA and his performance, as I would have expected him to actually do pretty well. The same couldn't be said about Palmer. Always did worry about this game. Liverpool is a pretty tough fixture, but Chelsea did score in this one. Palmer wasn't involved though, but he did have a few chances, just kind of lacked that final shot threat. On another day, I do believe he could have at least had a goal in this fixture, but we'll have to settle for the 2-pointer. Same with Mbeumo, unfortunately didn't do much against United. Brentford looked pretty good for periods of the game, but United were definitely the better team. This has been the first blank in a while though from Mbeumo, so we'll take it on the chin. Still great value at this price point. Now last two options, you might be wondering, where did our points actually come from in the midfield department? Well, first of all, it came from Rodgers. Now it's quite sad to see that his goal only resulted in 6 points, but he racked up a yellow card. Still, he is great value. As I've said, we have to remind ourselves that he's so cheap, and if he can continue to score every other game week, I'll be pretty happy. Now the last player was definitely the clutch player of our game week. It was going to be Kulusevski. Not affording Johnson actually might have paid off. I do think though between him and Johnson this week and last week, it's pretty even, but when I saw that he scored, I was pretty ecstatic. Just shows in FPL sometimes going for a cheaper option because you can't afford the more expensive one, sometimes does come in handy. Now Spurs went on and scored a few more goals. Unfortunately Kulusevski wasn't involved, but as long as he matches Johnson, I'll be pretty happy. Now up front, not many points came from Erling Haaland. He loves Haddies and therefore he's blanked 3 game weeks in a row. I don't really think it's time to sell though. Did have some chances here and there, but Wolves played pretty kind of defensive, and even though it might be quite frustrating to own him, his captaincy percentage was always going to be high. So all I can say is that if there's any of you out there that didn't go for Erling Haaland for the past 3 game weeks, you guys are absolutely kings at FPL. He does play Southampton though next week, so I'm pretty sure I'll be going back to him again, but surely he scores against them at home. Then the final player, Dom Solanke, a player that was mentioned on our deadline stream quite a bit. A lot of people wanted to take Ollie Watkins out for Dom Solanke, and he ended up blanking unfortunately. Now the most worrying factor is that Spurs scored so many goals and Dom Solanke actually blanked, not what you want to see from their main focal point in attack. But as been discussed over on Twitter, was playing a little bit of a deeper role this game week, which is not great from an FPL point of view. So unfortunately Dom Solanke does wrap up our blank and a pretty low scoring game week, where 42 points is enough to get a green arrow. Now let me know how many points you guys scored. If you have players coming up tonight, good luck for that. But I'll be updating you guys in terms of the overall rank around game week 10. Now the next talking point to go over is going to be the actual current team selection with no transfers made. Just want to give you guys the context before I go over my moves. So we do have 2 free transfers and 0.0 in the bank. So maybe in the comments down below suggest some moves as we go along. Now the bench this week, I will be benching Gabriel against Liverpool at home. Just don't really favour their defence at the moment. Without Saliba, they might be a little bit vulnerable, and Liverpool's attack is off the charts. Then Greaves, unfortunately, if he is going to be still injured, I wouldn't play him anyways. He's going to accompany Chiwomi on the bench. Now starting goalkeeper Flecken has a very strong fixture. Ipswich at home's a great game. Surely this is the game week that he finally gets us some clean sheet points. Overall though, the team actually looks pretty stacked for game week 9. Fingers crossed it's going to be a massive game week. Now back 3, Van der Ven comes in for Gabriel with a better fixture. Crystal Palace away is not too shabby. Now he rose in price last night, don't exactly know how he's blanked in the last 2 game weeks, but thanks for that extra 0.1. Then Guardiola and Lewis, I just hope both these players start the fixture, as Southampton at home is pretty much the best game this season. So let's see what happens in the Champions League coming up midweek. It's a pretty easy tie though for Man City, so hopefully Guardiola and Lewis get a rest. Then our midfield department also looks pretty decent, except for SAKA against Liverpool at home, but I might be taking him out pretty soon. Palmer's Newcastle at home, a pretty strong fixture. Newcastle's defense isn't great. I can see him bouncing back from this blank. Then in Boomer has also got Ipswich, a great game on the cards. Quite borderline between what's the better game, this or Southampton. Finally, Rodgers against Bournemouth, coming off a very strong victory against Arsenal, but I'm expecting goals from both sides here. Then also Kulusevski, the hero of game week 8, might be departing in game week 9. Let's see how the chips gonna fall. The Crystal Palace away is going to be a good game, obviously depends on what happens tonight. This stage of the season is pretty reactionary, so let's see how they concede tonight against Forest. Then finally up front, captain at the moment could be the triple captain. It's Erling Haaland against Southampton. I would have probably liked a bit more involvement in the goals over the previous game weeks, but I still feel like it's a great triple captaincy option if you guys want to do it in a single game week. I'm just on the captaincy armband at the moment, don't exactly know if the effective ownership will be that sky high, but pretty sure most people that own him will captain him. Then our final option, Dom Solanke, great fixture, would love if he's a bit higher up the pitch. Still feel like he's a good player in a great attack though. So that front line does round up our team at the current moment. I believe that the starting 11 looks pretty stacked, but 2 transfers could help improve it. As I said early on, comment down below what you guys think I should do with the team. Let's go over my current thoughts now though. So now heading on to the transfer plan for the upcoming game week 9, 2 free transfers and 0.0 in the bank. And the biggest option this week to probably depart is going to be SAKA. So I'm recording this on Monday afternoon, pretty late afternoon. We've just had news that SAKA and Timber aren't in Arsenal training, and therefore that does raise some concerns about his place this weekend. Now, as mentioned, Arsenal do play in the Champions League coming up this midweek, and they have a tie against Shakhtar Donetsk. So the only problem about that is that Arteta gives us hardly anything in his press conferences, so you probably would have liked to see him appear at least off the bench to put him in contention of starting the weekend. Now, because we won't get that, it raises some more concerns about Saka's start, and even if he does start, it's against Liverpool at home. After that, Newcastle as well as Chelsea, not the best games in the world, but I still feel like Arsenal can score in those. So what this transfer might come down to is if Saka's in training and looks okay for the Liverpool game, I might keep him, but with 2 free transfers, he might be on the way out. Now the 2 replacements at the moment, the controversial one, Heung-min Son, I mean, he's so good he's getting assists that he shouldn't. Now the biggest thing about Son is that kind of game week against Ipswich at home, and over the next 3 I do prefer their fixtures over SAKA. So was my number 1 replacement if I did kind of take him out in game week 8, so of course Son's going to still be there. Now another option could be a Phil Foden, even though he didn't start in game week 8, he might start in game week 9, and against Southampton at home might be an absolute 1 week punt here. I say 1 week punt, but you could keep hold of him for Bournemouth and Brighton. Even against Spurs and Liverpool, I can see Man City scoring. Now obviously with Man City comes the kind of threat of rotation, and that's what we saw in game week 8, and that's why I still prefer Son, as if he is fit, he's going to play. So this transfer does actually look pretty likely. I could see Son rising in price fairly shortly, so tell me if you think this move is worth it. Now of course I will have to use the second free transfer. I mentioned this on the deadline stream and my team selections last week, but I do already own a Spurs triple up and a Man City one. So the second transfer will be used to get rid of one of those options to free up an extra spot. So if I do go for Son, who's my preference, I'll therefore have to take out Van der Ven or Kulusevski, as I probably want to keep Dom Solanke. So at the moment, Van der Ven is 4.6 euros in price and Kulusevski 6.2, but the Son money gives me enough to kind of upgrade them. So some future planning is probably going to have to be involved here, but I probably would prefer the Spurs attack to the defense. But if I was to take on an option, targeting an attack is more exciting. So if I was to replace Van der Ven, it's probably going to be Aït-Nouri with a good fixture run, as even though Wolves can't keep a clean sheet, he has great attacking numbers. If I was to take out Kulusevski, Garnacho might be the one to look at. I know, a United attacker, what am I thinking? But I watched the United game and he looked pretty lively. So Garnacho for Kulusevski or going for Aït-Nouri for Van der Ven, that's pretty much the moves I've kind of nailed down. But as mentioned, I could always go for a full Foden, and therefore Rico Lewis could be on the way out, as I want to keep Guardiola as well as Erling Haaland. So same story with Van der Ven, it would be going for an attacking 4.5, but I do believe Son's going to be the preferable option. Now if I don't want to use 2 free transfers, I guess I could always go for a Bruno Fernandes, but I probably want to get Son for that Ipswich at home game. So the 2 free transfers does look pretty likely, bringing in Son for SAKA, but the second transfer is a little trickier. You guys can comment down below, who do you prefer, replacing Van der Ven or replacing Kulusevski? I'm going to do some future planning and kind of go for the best option. But you guys can let me know how game week 8 went as well as your transfer plan for game week 9. If you're taking out SAKA, who's your replacement? Tons of content still coming up, but as well as football, Champions League, Europa and Conference League. Make sure that you guys pay attention to those games, or at least my upcoming videos. But this is basically a wrap for the guys. Hope you guys did enjoy it. Please don't forget to like if you didn't subscribe if you have subscribed yet. Notifications on for those future videos. But for the time being, I'm signing off. It's been Dayvy FPL and I'm out. Cheers, bye.